drop the me that I want you to think I am, and we will present our partner with, here's the me I'm afraid I am, how much of me can you handle? Okay? So those two parts of self, in the beginning of a relationship, I think you all know what I'm talking about, we hide the me that I'm afraid I am. We don't let that part out, hardly under any circumstance. We do let it out later. It's all right, you love me, you want to marry me, we're married, well, here's the other half of the marriage. Okay? Now here's the technique to try and see how it works, and that is the next time the me that I'm afraid I am is expressing itself to my wife, to my children, to an acquaintance. In the middle of that expression, in the middle of the heat of the argument, in the middle of digging through the black bag looking for the next stud missile we're going to throw at the person we are in this thing with, if you can stop, look the person directly in the eyes and say to the person, I don't want to be doing this. I'm aware of what I'm doing. I'm aware that I'm throwing missiles at you, and that's not what I really want to do. What I really want to do is tell you how much I love you. That will rend your veil from the top to the bottom. And it's the technique I suggest you try. It is absolutely unbelievable. I can tell you when Paul taught me that technique way back before we were even doing self-talk in the fellowship. And when I first heard it, my first response was, who are you trying to kid? You know? If I'm in the middle of it, I'm in the middle of it, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to make this work. And it wasn't too much longer that I was in the middle of dealing with one of my major lessons with my wife. And I'll describe it as best I can to show you what happened. She had had an experience, most of you know what I mean by that, and I was telling her that I couldn't live under such circumstances, and how could you do that to me? You with me? And we were going through the whole thing, and all of a sudden, when I was really starting to I was getting ready to start the carpet bombing, you know what I mean? I had 30 minutes of stuff I was going to start dumping on her, faster than she could respond to it. And all of a sudden I remembered what Paul had said. In the middle of an argument, of a fight, of trying to hurt the other person because you believe they've hurt you, stop, look them right in the eye, and tell them what I really want from this is I want to love you. And I'm hoping you'll love me back, but I want to love you. That's what I really want from this experience. So in the middle of this, right in the middle of it, when I was telling her that we had to get a divorce because I couldn't live with what she had done to my marriage, I heard Paul, I literally heard Paul saying, Thomas, do you know how to deal with this? And my first couple thoughts were, no way, I'm not going to do it. And all of a sudden I had the thought to try it. And you know what actually came out? You can have as many of those experiences as you want. I'm in love with you, and I'm in this marriage until you get rid of me. The opposite of what I was telling her. And that was the end of that whole experience in our marriage. That ended it completely. If you are willing to open that veil, I guarantee you, you won't do that again. Now, I'm not telling you that Marianne and I have never had an argument since, but we have never discussed that issue again. It's done. It's complete. Love is the most powerful energy in the universe. It will transform the situation completely, and you'll find yourself on the other side of the coin. All right? Do try it sometime. When you're in this space of what somebody else has done to you, and you're hurting, and the hurt is real, take that hurt and bring it up through the heart chakra and tell the person what you really want to tell them. Is that a question? Yes. Including self. Okay. Right, and I'm glad you brought that point up. I might have skipped that. Do it with yourself as well. You know, when you're really coming down on yourself, try and stop in the middle of it and tell yourself how all right you are. This does open the veil. It is a technique for opening this veil. And you won't repeat the same experience. You'll get that one out of your little arsenal, if you will. So you can ask yourself questions in the middle of some of these scenarios that are coming from here, and that is, do I really want to do this? And what would I rather be doing? And you might want to get those in your notes so you can remember them. It's an interesting thing. If you're in the middle of one of these painful things we do with ourselves and each other, and out of your mind comes the phrase, what do I really want to do? You're going to find yourself pausing for a moment. And that's the opportunity to open the veil. That's the opportunity to let the real you be resurrected and come alive. Okay? Yes.
I had a couple of things like that, and those weren't major things, but just little things in the kitchen that we were arguing about things. And I didn't go that far to say that I love you, but just stopping in the middle and looking each other in the eyes, it's so incredible, because you both know darn well what's going on. And just the fact that you stopped in the middle of it is so healing.
Thanks.
You just crack up, both of it, and it's fantastic. Just realizing what you're doing at a certain point and just stop. Just stopping is enough to have the healing, really.
The stopping will produce the healing. And there's also, and again, maybe this is the way Thomas thinks, there's nothing more fun than discovering this stuff. We run around wanting to know, what is life really about? What am I really here for? What's really going on? This is another way to answer the question. What am I here for? To rend the veil. That's what I'm here for, so the real me can express itself. Yes?
There's more than one veil.
What do you mean? Before I don't want to just, I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
I'm getting the feeling when you say to rend the veil, there's a part of my mind that says, that's it, the veil is rent and everything is okay and you don't have to rend the veil again, but then then you will have to.
Well, okay. If you do it totally, let me answer your question this way. When we're talking about rending the veil, we are talking about literally enlightenment. Now, what's the key to enlightenment? Let me give you the answer to this question. It's really fascinating. What do I have to do to be enlightened today? There's only one thing you have to do. Tell yourself the truth. Are you with me on that? All I have to do to be enlightened is tell myself the truth. So if I'm angry at Marianne because she hurt me, I'm telling myself a lie. Marianne cannot hurt me. Nobody can hurt me. You with me on this? So, and that is endarkenment. That is a word, by the way. Endarkenment. Don't look it up in the dictionary, because it's not there, but it is a word. All right? It's the opposite of enlightenment. So the key to enlightenment is you tell yourself the truth. So if I'm angry at Marianne about something she said or something she did or something she didn't do, what's the truth? What am I actually doing? I lie to myself when I say I'm trying to get her clear about the pain she caused me. I tell myself the truth when I admit I am trying to manipulate her. I want her to act differently. I may even want her to believe differently. That's telling yourself the truth. I am not doing this because you hurt me. I'm doing this because I don't like what you're doing and I want you to change. You see? So you get honest with yourself, you tell yourself the truth about the situation, and you open that veil. You can open it in those little situations. It's highly likely that everybody in this room has opened the veil from time to time and peeked out and then shut it. And then open it and peek out and then shut it. Okay? We talked about it in the past workshops. If you're sitting with a person or even a group of people and you start to sense that there is kindness and caring, unconditional acceptance and understanding, you'll start to peek out of that veil. You'll start to reveal parts of yourself you wouldn't normally reveal. You'll start to look at parts of yourself you wouldn't normally look at. If you're in a group or an environment where there's a part of you telling you, if I let these people find out that I've done this or thought this, I'm going to be rejected, you hold the veil shut, just as tight as you can hold it. Question?
Yes, as being enlightened then means it's impossible to hurt you?
Pardon me?
Being enlightened means it's impossible to hurt you?
It's impossible for you to hurt me if I am enlightened. I may choose to be hurt, but it's not, you following me? You see? Because the point I want to make that pertains to the question over here is, I'm not saying if you do this, you'll never get angry again. You will. I'm not saying if you do this, you'll never experience jealousy again. You will, but you will know what you're doing while you're doing it, and it won't last very long. Does everybody understand the point I'm making there? You know how we can get angry now, and it can last today, and it can go on tomorrow, and it can go on to the next, and in some situations it goes on for months, if not years. Try this technique, and I'm not saying you'll never get angry again. I am saying I get angry at Marianne, and 3 or 4 minutes later, it's as if it didn't happen. It's like, oh, I see what I'm doing. Let's cut this conversation. Let's come at this from another angle. If it's something we must sit and deal with, then give me a minute. Let me take a breath. Let me come back around. Let me remember that I choose to feel what I feel. This, we're hearing this in every workshop, aren't we? I choose to feel what I feel. Nobody is controlling my feelings. It's me. I choose it. People only help me find out what's in there. Okay? Is there a question?
So that rending the veil just is gaining awareness of what you do and how you do it, not necessarily eliminating that behavior.
You may or you may not. If the behavior comes from down here, yes, you will eliminate it. It will eliminate itself. If you open the veil and shine the light, then it's no longer darkness.
Okay.
You with me? So we shine the light, and that's where this part of the workshop, in some of the things I told you that I even pulled in the one Sunday service, but let me tell you the whole story Paul told me. Do not force light on people. Don't force light on people because they don't like it. I'm willing to tell this whole group there are still some parts of Thomas that I keep dark, and I don't want Paul's light shining on it. I don't want your light shining on it. It's me, it's intimate, and I'll shine light in that area when I want to. You see? So that's part of the answer to that. Okay? Question back here or comment?
During that pause that you were referring to, more likely than not, the me that I am terrified of will jump out. And it has a claw hammer.
Yes. The me that I'm afraid I am. Okay? If it jumps out, we respond to it.
I was thinking that we've done the throne experience as the seminary students.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a good thing to instigate a veil experience.
Remember, you're the one who brought that up. The veil experience is naming the name. And I keep using that term, and I apologize for not being able to give you a total, clear definition of naming the name. And the reason I can't is because everybody names their own name. But that's, if you want to get esoteric, we will continue to come to this planet on the reincarnation wheel until we have named the name of every experience we've ever had. You with me on that? Calling things what they are. Neither right or wrong, just calling things what they are. Let me tell you a little more about where what we're talking about comes up in the Bible. You know the story in the Bible where Moses strikes the rock and makes the water flow? You know what that is symbolic of? It is symbolic of the lecture we are doing right now. And Moses was doing that lecture, and the audience was not sure what Moses was trying to tell them about the thieves and the Christ in the middle and who's who. And Moses got frustrated. And if you know the power and the magic of Moses, he took his staff and struck the consciousness of the people to open the veil so they could see the truth. And God immediately closed all the veils and said, Moses, I told you, they have free will. Do not force enlightenment. That's the esoteric side of Moses striking the rock and making the water flow. Trying to force people into enlightenment, which was nothing more than Moses telling the people that were with him, would you call it what it is? If it's false worship, call it that. If it's anger, call it anger. If it's jealousy, call it jealousy. Name the name, call it what it is, and you will find yourself enlightened. Okay? Now, yes.
Are you talking about calling it what it is inside of yourself, Thomas?
Yes, inside of yourself.
Not out there.
Not out there.
Because that could be totally inaccurate if you're calling it out here.
Right.
But in here, if we trust ourselves, we'll be able to call it what it is?
We'll be able to call it what it is. Or some people, I've watched some people have the experience of getting a little closer each time. If there's any such thing as getting a little more honest, and then a little more honest, and then, aha, there it is. I finally named the name.
How do we know that we're calling it what it is? Do we just feel it?
You'll feel it. It's a magical experience, and and it is followed with freedom and peace, and you can feel it. It hits you. It's like, yes, I finally call it what it is. You can't name the name externally, as part of your question. You can't externalize. You know, I do naming the name workshops in Canada, for example, and I come back 6 months later and I catch couples trying to name the name for their partner, and I want to pull my hair out. It's like, where did I go wrong in the workshop? I don't name the name for Marianne. I can't. You see, she doesn't name the name for me. She can't. Okay? We name the name for ourselves. What am I doing? What is my motive? What is my intent? All right? Now I want to talk a little bit about affirmations. Okay? And then I want to give you a 40-day triangulation exercise. And I need to be very careful here, because how many people in here have read books on or use affirmations? Okay. What I want to show you some of the pitfalls of affirmation. Now, I'm sure you heard up to this point, I would assume you've heard up to this point, that you can speak so many words a minute. Okay? The average person speaks between 200 and 300 words a minute. There are some people who can get up to 5 or 6. The mind can think 3,000 concepts, 3,000 groups of words a minute. So, Thomas grows up with a lack of self-worth and a lack of all rightness, and for 28, 30 years, he's telling himself in his self-talk, the argument back and forth, you're dummy, you stupid, you failed the first grade, you failed the third, you failed the fifth, you couldn't get through the ninth, you dropped out, you dummy. Okay? At 3,000 concepts a minute, I can communicate that to myself. And then I pick up a book, and the book says, hey, use an affirmation. So here I am, over here, I'm stupid. And someone says, well, use the affirmation, I'm smart. So I'm saying, I'm smart, I'm smart, I'm smart. And 3,000 times faster than that, the voice is going, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not. Yeah. Have anybody had that experience of trying to make affirmations work? Let me tell you another one, and really try and get this principle. And Grace reminded me of this, and thanks, because I probably wouldn't have shared it today. Here I am over here, I'm stupid. Now, what does that mean? That means you can't teach me anything. And I proved that to the education system. You can't force me to learn anything. All right? Then I ran over here when I heard about affirmations, and I said, I used to write down, I'm smart, I'm smart, I'm smart. You know what that means? I'm smart. You can't teach me anything. Did you get that? Opposites on these kind of spectrums produce the same results. I'm stupid. I'm smart, and the real truth is the message I'm really saying to the world, if I want to name the name on either side of that affirmation, is naming the name for me was, you can't make me learn. That was naming the name. When I discovered that, when I discovered what I was actually communicating, what was behind it, so for me, then, let me do it again. So I'm stupid, and I can prove it, and the teachers proved it, and I have tests to prove that I'm stupid. I use an affirmation that says I'm smart. Neither one of those were naming the name. Naming the name was, from a very early age, I developed a belief that says, you can't make me learn. And if you want me to take you one step farther than that in naming the name, which I've done for myself, behind that was, I didn't ask to be here. Are you with me? You see how naming the name works? You keep going back. So then how do we use affirmations? You use an affirmation that is above what you are dealing with. So the affirmation I picked was, I learn what I want to learn. And that is the truth, by the way. I learn what I want to learn. And that's the truth that sets me free. I no longer blame it on my educational abilities. I no longer play a war game with educational systems or even individual people about, you can't make me learn anything. I take full responsibility. I learn what I want to learn. That affirmation has worked for me, all the way to the point of studying Alice Bailey, which is far beyond my educational abilities, if you will. Okay? So my point is, be careful of binary affirmations, because they very often produce the same result in your life experience. My father was alcoholic. Well, back in the 60s and early 70s, that was redneck. Everybody, how many people are familiar with the term redneck? Okay? I didn't want to be a redneck. Matter of fact, I wanted to be the opposite of a redneck. Well, with the group of people I ran with, the opposite of a redneck is a heroin addict. And I did it. And I was proud of myself. I'm not like my father. Until I realized my life experience is the same, it produces the same result. So the opposite of a spectrum produces the same result. So you pick an affirmation that is above the spectrum you're on, if you will, and you pick one that you can believe, or you pick an affirmation that is the truth. Does that make sense to everybody, what we're doing there with affirmations? Be careful of the binary affirmation. All right? If you're going to use a binary affirmation, then you better walk the talk. That's another technique that I've seen people get away with. I will say the opposite, but I will act as if I believe it. I won't wait to find out if it's true. If I'm going to go to, I'm smart, then I'm also going to go ahead and go to college and get a master's degree and do all those things. I'm going to follow through with it. Another example. So watch binary affirmations. Pardon me. You got half a question there? The opposite, going all the way to the opposite. For example, I'm stupid, all the way over to I'm smart, I'm intelligent. Or I'm ugly, all the way over to I am absolutely the most beautiful person on the planet. What do you do for an affirmation like that? I'm ugly, I'm absolutely beautiful. You want to know what you use? And I mean this very seriously. I am me, so you can tell me apart from the rest of the people you know. Are you with me? That's an affirmation you can use. I am me, I am unique. I can be identified by how I look. And I'm already assuming you've dealt with self-worth and you're out of this stuff of, I can't accept myself, as if you had a choice. You're stuck with the you that you think you are anyway, aren't you? Okay? So you take an affirmation that is above the plane or the spectrum you are working on, and you take one that you can believe and that you can work with. And you may find at times that they will change. After a while, the affirmation may go another step. All right? Question? Okay, any more questions, or any questions on self-talk? Not triangulation, because that's what I'm going to do next, but any questions on self-talk? And I'm hearing, if I'm clear, that you did a lot of work yesterday with self-talk and beliefs. Okay? I suggest very strongly that you don't stop that. Stay with it. Spend a certain amount of time every day looking for self-talk statements. Self-talk statements about how you look, how you feel, how you act, your career, your diet, your clothing, your home, finances. We covered a lot of that in the prosperity workshop. Find out as many of your self-talk statements as you can possibly find out so you know what you're telling yourself. Because you may want to know, and some of you who are into dreams may already know, that these don't stop when you go to sleep. Those of you who keep track of your daily dreams may have discovered this self-talk goes on all the time. And you may want to also know that it doesn't stop when you drop the body. As above, so below. As below, so above. Yes.
Is there a way of controlling self-talk when you're asleep?
Yes, and that comes up in the dream workshop. Not to force you over there, but it does. There's a whole scenario there of how to turn your mind over to, I'll give you this much. Before you go to sleep, you turn your mind over to the highest within you. You don't just fall asleep. You literally turn your mind over to living love or whatever term you use. Okay? You give the mind over. So, because you don't want to be unconscious when you're asleep any more than you want to be unconscious when you're awake, as far as how I'm using the word unconscious. If you don't know your self-talk, then you can't claim consciousness. You can claim habit. And my self-talk runs my life, and it runs my relationships, and it runs everything that I do. All right? Let's talk about the triangulation exercise. Now, this is an exercise that we do for 40 days. Now, I want to give you the only rule. There's 2 rules. I'll give you the first of the only 2 rules in the triangulation exercise. If you miss a day, start over with the first day. We want 40 consecutive days of the self-talk exercise. And that does mean if you get to day 39 and you blow it, then go back to day 1. You do need 40 days in order to make the magic happen. Okay? And what we're going to do for 40 days, you can do it in your meadow. I suggest that it is done in the meadow or in the temple. For those of you who don't use the meadow or temple, focus yourself, get attuned, and you start off by, you can start off either way. I'm just going to do it this way. The child says to the parent, I love you, I care about you. I want to understand you, and I want your guidance where appropriate. Now I'm giving you examples. I suggest you write your own little meditation. However, make sure you don't put a negative in there. I love you, I care about you, I appreciate you, I thank you for the fact that I'm still alive, I want your input when it's appropriate. Okay? So the child talks to the parent. Step 2. The parent communicates back to the child. I love you. I care about you. I appreciate you. Some common phrases are, I want you to be free. I want you to express yourself. So now we have the child saying, I love you to the parent. We have the parent saying, I love you to the child. And do this by calling the child and parent's name. So for example, Thomas, I love you. Thomas, I care about you. Thomas, I appreciate you. And then Gary, I love you. Gary, I care about you. Gary, I want you to express yourself. I want to hear what it is you want to say. So we've got those going back and forth. After we've done that, then the child says to living love, and this is a quote. This one, I suggest you use this quote. I want to know you better. I want you to take charge of my life. I want to know you better. I want you to take charge of my life. That's the child talking to love. And then the parent says to love, or the term that I always use is living love. I want to know you better. I want you to take charge of my life. Now, the second rule, you ready? Do not listen for an answer until day 41. Every day for 40 days, the child will love the parent will love the child will ask love to know love better and ask love to run the life. The parent will ask love to know love better, will ask love to run the life, and not wait for an answer. Not listen for an answer. For 40 days, what we're doing, if you will, what we are doing is for 40 days, we are in the wilderness using only vertical connection. On day 41, after you do the whole little exercise, wait for the answer. If it doesn't come, on day 42, do the exercise, wait for the answer. What I can tell you is you will get an answer. And it is magical, it is personal, and the key to this is, at that point, you will know without a doubt what love sounds like, what the tone of the voice is, what the energy is. Because all of us have hundreds of voices in our heads. Do we not? You following me? There's hundreds of them coming at us from all angles. And I want to give you some warnings, and this is not at all fear stuff. I just want to give you some warnings. If you're highly disciplined in the first couple days, this won't be a problem. If you're not highly disciplined, you may have to wrestle with the child and the parent just to get them to come to the meadow to do it. Then you get them doing it, and everything's fine until you get to, I think it was David Goodhart, or no, it was Alina who pointed this out to me clearly. I think it was about day 36 or 37, when the child and the parent started to get a little concerned. You following me? All of a sudden, the child and the parent got to thinking, uh-oh, I am about 72 hours from no longer being in charge. I can't even fake it after day 40. Are you with me? And what the child and parent will try to do is get you to miss a day. I'm very serious about this. It's just information. Be aware of it. Yes. I suggest 3 times. The technique will work with once. But if you do it 3 times, 1 out of those 3 is going to be your good one every day. All right? So I suggest you do it morning, noon, and night. Yes.
When we do this, are we to visualize the child coming into the meadow and then the parent coming into the meadow?
If that works for you.
Or we can do it out of ourselves?
Or you can just do it yourselves.
However it works for you.
However
There's
it
no
works,
rule
right.
about that.
No rule about that. Do be sure to call each other by name. Not child or parent, Gary, Thomas, living love, Christ, whatever works for you, whatever you've been raised with, whatever term works for you.
What do you do if you do start to hear an answer, you cut it off?
I would suggest you cut it off within the first 40 days. Yes. Try not to get a response in the first 40 days. Because there's one thing about it. If you start getting responses, you have no way of knowing if it's love or not, most likely. Okay? You may, I mean, when I've done this exercise more than once. And actually, I'll tell you what happens. After 40 days, you'll probably do it every day anyway. You get used to it, and you enjoy it. You know, it's kind of nice to get up, wake up in the morning and have both sides of yourself tell each other how much they love each other and make a contact with living love. Okay? But don't listen for, don't ask for an answer in the first 40 days, and be prepared for the child or the parent or both. Get these words written down. Your child and parent are cunning, powerful, and baffling. Some people know where I got that from. Alcoholics Anonymous. Cunning, powerful, and baffling. And don't take that too lightly. I'm not trying to create a little fear thing here of, oh my God, I'm on day 35 and tomorrow the hammer drops. I'm trying to make you aware that it is not out of the ordinary that they're going to start kicking and screaming. The child's going to kick and scream, and the parent's going to justify why you can skip a day. You see? And that's why I'm suggesting you do it 3 times a day, because the technique says once. I'm suggesting 3 times a day because I'm going to repeat this until I've really pounded it in. The child and parent are cunning, powerful, and baffling. Well, I had to take my wife to the hospital this morning. You mean I wasn't supposed to do it today? She was having a cardiac arrest. You with me? Those are the kind of things you'd be surprised what can come up on day 36, 37, 38, 39. They will try to keep you from making this vertical connection. All right? Yes.
I go through that constantly, even when there's something I'm only supposed to do for a week and I don't finish it. You know, so I end up giving in. There's really good reasons and excuses. And all
Right.
that. Is there something that, other than, you know, knowing this, how can I keep from falling into that again?
Well, I'll tell you what I had to do, because I'm the same way. I can do something for a couple weeks and then all of a sudden I've got it, or I don't need it, or it's working. So what I did is I wrote out this little technique, this little meditation in detail. Gary, I love you. Gary, I support you. Gary, I care about you. Thomas, I love you. I wrote it all out in my journal, and I read it every day, 3 times a day. You can write it out in the front of one piece of paper, fold it up, stick it in your purse, stick it in your wallet. All right? No, don't use a tape, because you do this. You with me? And a tape is suggestional. This is something you actually, literally do. All right? You will discover after about the 14th day, it for most people, it will become automatic. You'll wake up, and as you're getting up and heading for the bathroom or the kitchen, you'll hear yourself going through it. Okay? Yes.
Do you have to assure Thomas that you say the same things each day? I mean, exactly the same things?
No, and get real clear about it. Am I answering you?
Like you said, you wrote it out.
Mhm.
Do you mean that you did an open eye meditation and you read it?
Yes.
Oh, you did.
Right.
At least for a while until
For the
it
first
sunk
14 days.
in.
Until it wasn't just memorized, but until it became automatic.
Does this mean no meditation for 40 days? No listening to source?
No.
So, as far as some
Go
of
up
these
your
students-
temple, do what you're doing with your temples, do what you're doing with everything else, and do this. Now be careful now, and not directly, but don't make this a complicated thing. Just find about 3-minute parts of your day when you can just do this. And if you're doing other meditations where you're talking to living love and all this and that, do all those things. And also do this. Okay? Even if you've already met living love, so you know what living love voice sounds like, you know when you can totally rely on it, You know when you don't want to rely on the voice because it wasn't the voice that is love. Even if all that's working, it is still likely that a lot of your messages to the child and parent are going through hell. So we are also not just trying to make a firm connection with living love, we are trying to make sure that we reach a point where my communications can't go through hell because there is no hell. Are you with me? And let me say that another way. I don't remember if I've said it to this group or not. Heaven is not a place you can go to. So if you're waiting to drop the body so you can go to heaven, you're in for a rude awakening. Heaven is not a place you go. It's a state of consciousness. It's a place of being.
Yeah, but then people say, where you go?
You go as above, so below. So if I'm into being successful, and successful is what I think makes my life work, where do I go when I pass away? I go to a place on the other side of the veil with all those people who think success is what makes you happy. And then what a fight do you think we're going to have? Which one of us is the most successful? You get the principle, the metaphor? As above, so below. If you can't find heaven on earth, you can't find it when you drop the body. Let me say it that way. If you don't know heaven on earth, what would make you know it when you drop the body? Because you're not carrying around the meat? Seriously. As above, so below. Heaven's not a place you go, it's a place you create. And that's part of what we're doing. If you want to know where you're going to go when you drop the body, what's the most important thing in your life now? If you were to drop the body now, guess where you would go? You'd be drawn to all the people on the other side who also believe that being the president of the United States is the most important thing. And you can all sit around and argue about who's going to reincarnate first. I'm real serious about this. Try and get the picture of what I'm trying to share. The principle is very valid. As above, so below. What matters on this side will matter on the other side. Okay? And for some people, what matters on this side is so important that they can't even get to the other side. And we call them ghosts. They hover around a particular house or a particular company or a particular thing, and they refuse to let go because to them that's life. And they won't let go of it. That's what Jesus meant when he said, as above, so below. If you want to experience heaven, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And if you don't believe it's within you now, you won't believe it's within you when you drop the body. So then we go to the other side, and we have all the same lessons we had on this side. The only difference will be matter is not the medium of expression. Does that make sense to everybody? That's the difference. You have a different medium of expression. It's just not matter. But the lessons are the same, the confusion's the same, the lack of seeing's the same, and the endarkment is the same. I love that word, endarkment. All right? So what we are doing in this exercise is eliminating hell. We are marrying heaven and earth. All right? Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth. That's me. Earth. In earth. As it is within heaven, which is within. And it needs to be expressed out. Okay? Any questions? I'm running out of things to say. Anybody confused about the triangulation exercise?
Are we going to do it now?
We'll do it before we break. Yes. Or before we leave at 7, yes.
Yeah. One little thing I remember from the workshop is that what you can do if in daytime, if things happen, your parent comes up, your critical parent comes up, just say, hey, Ruben, glad you're there. Thank you for making me aware. And just thank the critical parent and just let it go again.
Okay. Good point.
Who gave this lecture? Gary, Thomas, or Living Love?
Pardon me?
Who gave this lecture? Gary or Thomas or...
I refuse to answer that question on the grounds I might criminate myself. You want the real answer?
Yes.
Do you really want to know who's giving the lecture? You are. I'm answering the questions I see, in all seriousness. When we take the child and the parent off the cross, and they become angelic beings, and they start to become one, and we come out of the tomb, then we can rise into a state of consciousness that is called the mercy seat. Have you ever heard of the mercy seat? The mercy seat is when the child and the parent in living love have become one, and they sit in the mercy seat together. Okay? That is also known as, some of you may be very excited about this, that is also known as the John of Peniel experience. The John of Peniel experience. Okay? Somebody help me out there. P-I-N-E-A-L? Okay. What does it mean? The place where I see God face to face is the best I can describe it. The place where I see God face to face. It's the name of a gland in the head. Oh, Alan, let Alan have a mic there.
It's a place in Israel, Peniel, and I think in the biblical stories it's where Jacob met, or Isaac or someone met God face to face, and they named it that at the same time.
There's a lot of ways to describe what happens when you have heaven in earth. You can call it the place of Peniel, or the place where I meet God face to face, or the place where God and I sit in harmony. And you may want to meditate on what that means. We all want to meet God, but then we're all afraid that might change us. So where's that place where I meet God in harmony? It's called the mercy seat. It's when the child and the parent and the observer are living love, are working in total harmony. The one becomes two. We're getting into the sacred numbers workshop. The one becomes two. Now 1 plus 1 is never 2. 1 is 1. When 1 expresses itself, you have 2. You also have tension and you have duality. That was known to the Egyptians as the fall in the Garden of Eden, duality. Okay? When the 1 in the 2, if you will, okay. If we hold duality stiff-armed, then we are resisting the natural flow of life. Because 1 becomes 2, and 2 automatically, if not stopped, becomes 3. That's the Trinity. The 3 is relationship. The 3 is love. All right? So there are 2 of us, and we stiff-arm each other. We kick the child, and the child kicks at the parent. Are you with me? We refuse to let the natural flow go to the 3, which is technically relationship, harmony, balance. All right? So what you want to look at in your life is, what do I stiff arm in me, in the planet? Or who do I stiff arm? Who do I refuse, or what do I refuse to come into harmony with? And when I let down the stiff arm, and by the way, this stiff arm is where all pain comes from. All pain is a result of resistance. It is only natural that the 1 will become 2. 2 is feminine, so for all you women, the feminine expressed before the masculine, because 3 is masculine. Okay, now we're really into it. All right, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 is 1. Harmony, balance, energy returns to its source, unless I say, no, I refuse to accept that. I want life to be what it should be instead of what it is. This principle of numerology is what I've tried to share many times when I've said, if you want to help the Middle East conflict, accept it. Because if you try to deny that it's happening or make it wrong, there'll never be a 3. It's me, and then there's this war, and it shouldn't be that way. You see? It's not a matter of if we should be or shouldn't be in conflict in the Middle East. The fact is, we are. Okay? Now, this principle mainly applies to yourself. Whatever you have in yourself that you refuse to be all right with, that you are stiff-arming, you've got a serious problem with it, and it's going to be causing you pain. And the pain won't stop until you call it what it is. And now that I've called it what it is, the truth sets me free, and all you call it what it is, and all of a sudden we have this loving relationship. Nothing's changed but the attitude. Or, more technically, what's changed is what you call it now. You see? Is everybody getting the example? I'm using only because she did bring it up in one of the workshops. All right? Yes. Pardon me? Well, we've done that before. This group is welcome to do it. One of the things we did once before in the self-talk workshop was we said, find yourself a partner, somebody you don't know very well in the workshop, and make sure you call each other each day to make sure you've gotten your triangulation done. If you want to do that, you are more than welcome to do that. When we take a break or when we're done, just grab somebody and say, I don't know you all that well, but my name is so-and-so. Here's my number. You call me tomorrow. I'll call you the next day, and we'll call each other for 40 days and make sure that we're supporting each other through the experience. All right? And this workshop can do that same thing.
I realized I had a question. When you said, do not listen for a response or an answer, don't listen for an answer until day 41.
Right.
An answer to what?
Anything. Don't make this, do it in a meditative state, make it an exercise. And that's all there is to the exercise. Child to parent, parent to child, child to love, parent to love. I'm done with the exercise, and then start doing something else.
Okay.
For
so
40 days.
After 40 days, something will
On
happen.
day 41, listen.
Just for whatever.
Spend 3-4 minutes just being as still as you can be. You may or may not get an answer. On day 42, listen.
So not necessarily just to ask a question.
Pardon me?
Okay, not to necessarily ask a question, just open to listen.
Just open.
To hear response.
Until you hear a response. After you've heard a response a couple times, do you want me to give you some ideas of the kind of response you're going to hear? You're my beloved child in whom I'm well pleased. You with me? You're going to get one of those kind of answers. After you've heard the answer a few times, now you know the voice of living love. And now it's totally safe to say, should I quit my job? Should I sell my house? What should I do? And then you can listen. And then you can listen for that voice. You can know that voice. All right? So we're building a rapport. We're building a relationship with the part of us that is living love. All right? A lot of us have spent a lot of our life doing the stiff arm with living love. I don't want to be vulnerable. That means I'm a floor mat. That means people are going to walk all over me. That means I'm going to get taken advantage of. So we stiff arm the energy of love while we're asking for it, while we're looking for it. Okay. I need some questions. I've covered what I was asked to cover today. Yes.
I have a question, but it's a little bit further back. I just didn't finish
Okay.
it, and I wanted to keep it so that you gave the esoteric with regard to the human skull,
Right.
and the eyes being the rocks, and all to do with rending the veil. And I got to the rock is rolled away, and the two angels, which are the parent and the child, whose conflict is resolved. And what did you say after that?
Well, living love comes out of the tomb, and starts to plant a beautiful garden. Mary Magdalene comes up, first goes to the tomb, asks the angels, where has he gone? I don't remember what the angels said. Yes, why do you seek him here, as if he's dead? She comes out of the tomb, she sees the gardener. She asks the gardener, have you seen the master? And that's when the gardener reveals to her that he's the master. Okay? Part of what that is saying is, when the true living love comes out of you, if you have been a Mary Magdalene, which most of us have, a lot of people aren't going to recognize it, meaning they're going to ask you. You understand the symbology of that? People are going to ask you about the change. And this is real close to what this gentleman was sharing this morning. He did a beautiful talk when he pointed out that people challenged him. And again, not a fear thing. Let me give you some awareness. After this 40-day exercise, and you let you resurrect living love in you and express it, some people are going to laugh at you. Some people are going to tell you you are nuts. Some people are going to prescribe Valium. Are you with me? Yeah, there you go. Do be aware of that. Be aware of the fact that even your best friend is going to try and pull you back down. And a matter of fact, to be totally honest with you, it'll be your closest friends who will try and pull you back down. There is nothing more frightening, if I'm not focused, than to think that Marianne is this far from total enlightenment and I'm not going with her. Are you with me? Yeah. Yeah, so you bring them to the seminar. You got to be, what we're talking about is the wise men bringing gifts in Herod's soldiers. Whenever any human being gives birth to the Christ child or living love, Herod's soldiers are coming. You might as well know that. And their job is to slay the child. Okay? Yes.
I'd like to go back to something that we talking about earlier, about the two thieves on the cross, and Carol was saying that that wasn't clear to her. And I made the comment it was uncomfortably clear. So Carol brought that up at the break. I'd like to give an example of what I meant by it's uncomfortably clear from my own experience. As I observe myself judging people, as I observe myself simply perceiving people, I am aware that it is a projection of a fear within me of dying to the self that has perception, that is in separation. And there is a deeply embedded horror of dying to that self that sees separation. And when you're talking about the two thieves on the cross, that part of myself, the child and the parent, that is constantly doing this self-talk, it keeps me believing that I'm alive when actually I'm entombed. That being in hell is a comfortable place because it is the known place. And I am terrified of entering the unknown, which is heaven, of taking the body off of the cross, cleaning the body, putting it in the linen, enter it into the tomb, rolling the stone away, of resurrecting myself and experiencing the living love that has no need whatsoever to perceive people in any way that is separating, that is any way needs to judge. As long as I am on the cross, I need to judge. I need to see people as different from me, less than me, less evolved than me. And that is categorically all bullshit. It's my lie and fear to name the name. The name is I am terrified of dying. Period.
Very good. Yes.
When you spoke about the, it's your closest friends that will tear you down, just to share with you, Rick became very clear in his decision, and that really did free him up, and he's made tremendous progress.
Great.
And I noticed that it's me, and I perceived this morning before I came to church. It was me that, because I haven't felt really threatened of the unknown and like really angry with him for being there, or I felt threatened that he is, he achieved a certain sense of mobility and freedom, and because he was clear within himself, and
Things are changing.
things are changing. And as I drove to church, I was really aware of that, because when he dropped Jess off this morning, I pulled out my spear. And then before we said goodbye, I said, you're really looking good. Keep it up.
You son of a bitch.
I'm really glad you're feeling well. Goodbye. But that was clear when I drove to church, and it was really excellent to hear you say it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing it, because that's becoming conscious, becoming aware that, yes, we do think that way. And it can be very frightening when somebody we've hung around with or related to for a long time all of a sudden is about to take this step. It can scare the hell out of us. All right? And we will attempt to pull them back down. That's what the Herod soldiers are symbolic of in the Bible. Looking for that child, not wanting it to grow up. Do you have a question here?
You said that the two thieves were symbolic of the child and the parent.
Yes.
Isn't it true that in the Bible the thief on the right was the only one that was repentant? Could you comment on that?
No, that's not technically what happened. The master did say, I forget what he said to the one thief, but then he said to the other one, I prepare a place for you in my Father's house. And I meant to get the Bible out today and didn't have time, because I knew I was going to bring this up and I need to back up what I'm saying. But I can tell you that the two angels were the two thieves, or the child, the parent. What that tells you is we're all going home. Are you with me? There's different approaches to it. There's only one gateway. And can you? Okay, go ahead, because I've heard the answer to it and I don't remember specifically.
What one of them said to the Christ, "Can't you save us? You can certainly
Right.
save yourself, and you can save us too," which is the child, right? And the other one said, "Can't you see he's different from us? Leave him alone and let him die in peace," which was the parent, speaking to the other entity. And the Christ said to the parent, "Today you shall be with me in paradise."
In paradise, right. There's an interesting thing, bringing that up, to look at how the master thought. He never once dealt with the fear side of the spectrum. He referred to Satan in the desert as a son of God, which is very interesting. More than once, he referred to Satan as a son of God. You may really want to meditate on what that means. Some of you weren't here. Remember the question we did a couple weeks ago? I almost hesitate to bring it up, but does God love Mother Teresa more than Saddam Hussein? Now, the thing to know about the question is you can't ask that question of a being whose nature is unconditional love. The question doesn't apply. You following me? And I say meditate. I'm very serious when I say spend some time, let the mind go on a journey with some of those kind of concepts. The journey is the question doesn't apply. You can't ask God who he loves more. He wouldn't understand the question. She would tell you were nuts. Love is love, and it's unconditional. I did a workshop over at the ARE the other day on substance abuse. And obviously, most of you who know me, it was 2 minutes of substance abuse and an hour of unconditional love. And I was telling these people to use unconditional love. And it's interesting how an audience kind of comes back at you and says, yes, but. What about this and what about that? So I've got a new phrase. Unconditional personal regard for everybody you meet. All right? I think it means the same thing. If it doesn't, I'm going to change it. Okay? But if unconditional love seems unreasonable because look what Saddam Hussein has done, how could I possibly love him unconditionally? Then have an unconditional personal regard for him as an entity. All right? And something else about people like Saddam Hussein, if you are wise, and I really do mean this, you will throw in the phrase, but for the grace of God, there go I. And if you know what that means, it's very easy to love the man. But for the grace of God, there go I. Under the same circumstances, with the same beliefs, in the same country, with the same conditions, wonder what I would have done. And if you try and answer that question, you're a fool. You can't, okay? But those are some principles that help deal with those kind of scenarios. Unconditional is unconditional. And if you can't love externally unconditionally, you won't be loving internally unconditionally. All right? People who can't marry themselves have no business marrying anybody else. Try that one for a while. If you wouldn't marry you exactly the way you are with no changes required, it's dangerous to marry somebody else. With that, let's take 15 minutes break and come back and do a meditation.